Hi, I'm Yinka, and this is The Hurt Locker, a podcast where we open a door into men's mental health. Coming up. Your parents go through, in your words, a car crash of a divorce.
It was quite a unique time because the world wasn't set up for that. And it wasn't. I was just really, really fucking angry at the situation. And nobody ever talked to me about it. The fueling fires of starting Dad La Soul to go, you know what? I've got the power now to help that 6-year-old, 7-year-old Dan. They're all almost struggling in silence. And it sort of just, it echoes the importance of the work that needs to be done out there.
Welcome to this edition of The Hurt Locker. Today we are joined by Dan Flanagan, the originator of Dad La Soul, which took me musically and culturally back to the late 80s and early 90s, but we'll get into that in a moment anyway. And I can see that you're smiling there straight away.
You're a man of a certain age, you get it.
We don't talk about ages here.
Okay, yeah.
I'm only buzzing. Dan, welcome to The Hurt Locker.
Thank you very much for having me, my friend. Appreciate it.
No, we're appreciative of you, given of your time. Just before we started recording, you mentioned launching a new project, as it were, and with the BBC. And
it's long story short. Basically, it's through it's Radio 1 Morning Live, which is like the TV show that goes on after breakfast news on the BBC One, and Comic Relief, who are one of our sort of main supporters. And as in the run up to Red Nose Day, they send out the production teams for interesting stories. They can say, look, this is where the money's gone. And they chose us. We had a chap called Matt Edmondson, who's one of the primetime DJs, come down to where we're based, which is Worthing on the south coast, and spend the day with myself and a couple of the other lads hearing their stories. I think what was really interesting was, he was a young dad himself, but also he'd lost his dad to suicide. So the stuff that we were talking about and the work we do, it really, I wouldn't say affected him, but he invested in it considerably. And the film that was produced, a part of it got launched, and I think we're up to 20 million views on it. So we are a small team in a sleepy town in West Sussex to get that sort of coverage, and it's been on Radio 1 4 times. But it's to get that sort of brand awareness. But what it's caused is an influx of emails from blokes around the country that seen it going, this is me, I need help. It's been Glasgow, Newcastle, London, Sheffield, Manchester, Birmingham, Ireland, guys at very different backgrounds probably, but they're all almost struggling in silence, and it sort of just, it echoes the importance of the work that needs to be done out there.
Okay. Dan, we're going to touch upon the work that you're currently doing yourself, but let's start way back. Let's start way, way back, a long, long time ago. Not that long ago, really, actually.
We're too young to go way, way back anyway, aren't we, mate? So let's be honest.
I like you a lot. Let's start with childhood.
Yep.
Tell me, you speak about being on your organization, your company currently is on the West Coast, but where did you grow up? What was life like for you growing up as a young?
From the southeast, a lovely little town called Tunbridge Wells in the Garden of England. Life was normal for the first few years. We've moved down from southeast London, but then my parents divorced. My mum was very unwell, and because of that, and very, what's the politest way, car crash of a divorce. My dad got custody of myself and my 3 sisters. My mum had the time to go and recuperate, so I was brought up with a dad that ran a business, but also run the home. So it was quite a unique time because the world wasn't set up for that. It's still changing for a dad now, or challenging as dad, but yeah, there weren't really dads in the playground. There certainly wasn't dads changing facilities and toilets and stuff like that. So I sort of grew up seeing the abject lack of support there was for dads, and it's maybe 30 years later when I became a dad myself and I started struggling, I was able to reflect back to what my own dad, who's no longer with us, what he must have gone through. So that was almost one of the fueling fires of starting Dad La Soul, to go, you know what, I've got the power now to help that 6-year-old, 7-year-old Dan. So what can I do?
Okay, thank you. So your parents go through, in your words, a car crash of a divorce.
Yeah.
You're there. Are you alone? Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I've got 3 big sisters. They were teenagers, and there's 6 years between me and my youngest sister. So I was the only boy. So there was at that time, big age difference, because teenage girls are teenage girls.
Absolutely. So how was that for you then, being the youngest, the one that everybody just says, and maybe I'm stereotyping now, but
Yeah.
what do you know? You're not important, keep
Yeah.
quiet, yada yada. And your dad's away. Your
Yeah.
dad's working full time.
Yeah.
How was
So
that?
it got challenging, put it that way.
Go on,
Uh,
unpick. You can't use
okay,
that word challenging and just say,
yeah, okay. Well, there was always a lot of arguments. There was a lot of anger and arguments between the siblings, and having 3 teenage girls who are hormonal in the space is always interesting. With boyfriends and pop groups and hairspray, let alone the challenges that they were going through. On one side, I was probably spoilt because I was the only boy. But on the other side, yeah, I was the one that was kind of ignored, or I aged up very quickly. So when I was 7 or 8, I was probably acting like a teenager to be able to be party to those conversations and not be the annoying little brother that was stuck around.
I'm assuming that transition then from the divorce to you aging up, as it were, was a quick, speedy transition,
Yeah.
and that you had to find your space, your place within the family as well at the same time, and plant your own flag, as it were, and be heard.
It was that I was also really angry, really angry. So they had a thing where I got red hair. So they go, "Oh, we've got red hair temper," and it wasn't. I was just really, really fucking angry at the situation, and nobody ever talked to me about it. Nobody explained what was going on, or we didn't sit down as maybe you would do these days and have an emotionally intelligent conversation with your children to explain the changes that take place. They just happened. So I would make my own mind up about what was happening and who was at fault.
Who was at fault, in your opinion, at the time, without the reflection?
Uh, Probably myself. If I'd been a better child, maybe they'd not have divorced. If I'd not been so loud, maybe they'd be together. Maybe my mum for being ill. Why couldn't she have been stronger? There's it's very difficult to look back now, knowing what I know, and see what went on. It's uncomfortable, if I'm honest.
Thank you for sharing that. And I can see that, and that's why I just gave you the space then to.
Yeah, I respect that and appreciate it. It was it's not something I often discuss, the ins and outs of it. Not that I'm ashamed or anything, but it just doesn't come up in conversation. So this is quite an interesting approach, anyway, to provoke these deeper type of conversations. So I respect that.
I think for me, on a personal level, I think having gone through that myself, having experienced aspects of what you're undoubtedly going to talk through today's episode,
Mm.
it's interesting how, as children, we can internalize a lot of the reasons, or we try and rationalize a lot of the reasons. Could I have been better? Could I have done my homework? Could I have tidied my bedroom? And maybe
Yeah.
things would have panned out differently. And it's only years later that we realize that, well, actually, it wasn't my fault.
Mm.
Those two
Yeah.
people, those two caregivers were there to love us, protect us, support us, and they fell out with each other.
Yeah.
They could no longer move forward themselves.
They were both lovely, caring people, but just together, they were a nightmare.
Yeah.
That's just, the chemistry or whatever. But no, they were very different people. And realistically, probably never should have got married in the first place. But times were very different back then.
And hindsight is a smug bugger, as they say.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me then, just there's this young lad who's grown up rapidly, who's a bit more self-aware of what's going on around them, maybe
Hmm.
too self-aware. How did that impact your relationship with your father, your relationship with your sisters, your relationship with yourself?
I always had a very good relationship with my dad. He wasn't one for deep conversations. He would more get in, get done, get out. The way we showed our emotion was through humour
Okay.
and, taking. Can I swear?
Of course, this is
Yeah,
your
okay.
space.
Okay, yeah. But we'd take the piss out of each other. That's how we would reflect our camaraderie. We'd never sit down there and, open up. I quite imagine, running a business and having 4 kids, was a challenge, put it that way. Because realistically, you would have thought that, we probably came a whisper away, social services coming in and carting us away. But he wouldn't have that. So we stayed together. My relationship with myself, I acted out. I had a terrible time at senior school. I would fight all the time, very disruptive, to the point where I was probably getting in 2, 3 punch ups a week. Somebody said something or looked at me the wrong way, bang, that would be it. And it was because I understand now, I was angry about what was going on, behind closed doors. But
Absolutely.
again, nobody ever sat and had a conversation with me. It was just like, I was a naughty kid, I was a disruptive one. So I ended up leaving school at 15 with no qualifications. And I remember my careers master at that time, he said, "You've got 2 choices. You either join the army, you're going to end up in prison." That was his life chances for me as a 14, 15-year-old.
Okay, just hold that point. Just hold that.
Yeah.
An adult figure of authority says to you, these are your 2 pathways.
Hmm.
How do you receive and interpret that at the
To
time?
be honest, I had told him to fuck right off. Yeah, I reacted badly to it, or I think it laughed. And this was the mid 80s. It was a boom time of Thatcher's Britain. I was going to be an entrepreneur.
That's
Yeah,
interesting. I'm thinking about Only Fools and Horses and Dalboy saying to Rodney, this time next year we'll both be millionaires and all of that. Did you get caught up in that wave of optimism of,
yeah,
I'm going to use the phrase, a little England, that I'll be able to get my flag and get my castle and
yeah. The Del Boy Trotters, the Arthur Dailies, all of those were my cultural reference points and heroes, and I knew I'd always be able to get a job. But it wasn't, I wasn't shy of hard work. I ended up going back to college and getting a handful of, qualifications. It just showed what I could do in the right setting. The secondary school was not the right setting. It was a hostile environment. It was an all boys school.
It was oh, wow. Wow,
Yeah,
wow. Interesting you should mention that, an
yeah.
all-boys school. Do you think the outcome would have been different if it'd been mixed?
There would have been the peacocking that young boys do. They're
Okay.
probably, I don't know, it might have drilled down some of the testosterone that was there. But it was, the thing at school at the time was, what trainers were you wearing, and where were you in the pecking order?
So effectively in school, but in Liverpool, it's about who's cock of the school and
Yeah.
then who's
Yes.
below the cock of the school, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you the hardest kid in your form, your house, your year? And then it's the between the different schools in the area. Who's
Yes,
got the reputation in that school and that school? And it's been done since age and more.
absolutely.
Young boys will peacock.
Was that something that you cultivated?
Not cultivate's a strong word, but I tell
Is
you
it?
what I did do. I used to box,
Go on.
and that led to my reputation, which I definitely used in my advantage in order to keep people away. So
Interesting.
I know it's masking now, but I understand all of these sort of these emotions. But as a 14-year-old, I've got nice trainers, and you're gonna not give me shit, or I'm gonna punch your lights out, rather than going, oh, you're the kid who's got no mum, and opening
Well,
up to that sort of.
okay, can I ask, was that a thing?
It it wasn't a thing, but that's because I kept it so closely guarded that I only recognise now that I was on a heightened sense of awareness for years, waiting for somebody to bring it up. Yeah, I would present. I was always, one of the smartest kids in school. My uniform and everything was immaculate, because God forbid somebody thought, what might have been going on.
Okay.
There's a lot of pressure there. I think I came to understand it many years later with the help of a very good therapist.
I'm nodding there in
Yeah.
approval. Can we touch on your relationship with your sisters?
Yeah. Then I was probably a pain in the arse to them, to be honest, because they were interested in boys and leaving school and top of the pops. And they certainly didn't want me hanging around. So that's why I think I aged up very quickly to be able to be part of the conversations and be in the same space and be accepted. I've got a very good relationship with one of my sisters now. Always have done, actually, with her. The other
Okay.
two, it's quite an uncomfortable dynamic.
Okay. When your parents did divorce, did any of your sisters explain to you what was going on? Because I know you didn't
No,
have the conversation. You had it with nobody.
no, we got the. I think at the time, kids were still potentially made to go and stand up in court and say where they wanted to go and live, which is exactly basically telling, oh, here's your mum, here's your dad. Which one do you love more?
Yes.
Thankfully, I didn't have to do that. And I think the idea was also that if I stayed with my dad, I could stay at my school rather than move away. My mum wanted to move to, make a fresh start in a different town. So for my and my sister's sort of education, it made sense for us to stay where we were.
I'm pausing now, and it's easy for me to ask about your relationship with your mum, but I just want to go back a little bit. You said that your dad found it difficult to maybe emotionally articulate what was going through, and he used humor as a vehicle
Mm.
to communicate with yourself. Was there ever a time compulsion for you to say, Dad, what's going on, or what happened?
No, it just wouldn't have been the right thing to do. And I would have always felt that I should have been able to understand without asking. By asking, saying, I don't understand this, would be a sign of weakness, would be a sign of vulnerability. That ain't happening. So
And
I would
then
make my own assumptions.
that sounds difficult. And listen,
Mm.
I'm saying it sounds difficult, but
Yep.
I think there's millions of people up and down the country who experience similar situations and don't ask those questions, even though it's at the forefront of the mind.
Mm. I don't think I had the confidence to ask, because the answer would always be, if I did ask, oh, you're too young, you'll understand when you're older, which is essentially hogwash. I did, but it doesn't really help the child as was.
Absolutely. And your parents separated, your mum moved elsewhere. Was that far away
Yeah,
from?
she moved. She moved a lot. She moved around London. She moved to different places around the south coast. So I would sometimes see her at weekends, sometimes see her at the summer holidays, and then as I got older and became a teenager, I didn't really see her, because also the weekends I'd want to do what teenagers do.
Absolutely. And what would be a typical weekend for you?
As a teenager,
Yeah.
um, massive De La Soul fan. So I was uh, going to hip hop discos, doing graffiti, breakdancing, and wishing I was more confident to chat up girls. That never happened.
Tick, tick, and tick.
So that was, yeah, it was probably it was, I had a nice group of mates, and we lived in a nice area, and we were able, there was, from a music perspective, we were very lucky at the time that we had a venue quite close to us that used to have some very big name hip hop bands come down to. So KRS-One, Kid and Play, Stetson Sonic, Salt and Pepper, and stuff, they all came to our local town. So as a 14-year-old white kid in suburbia, we were sport rotten.
Absolutely. And as you're just rolling off
Yeah.
those groups, I'm just got a big smile on my face, just reminiscing about them times as well.
Yeah.
I'm just reminiscing.
That was my passion, and my probably one of my sole interests, trainers, music. And yeah, trying to dream of having the confidence to chat up girls.
Okay. And yeah, trainers, music, and the confidence to chat up girls. And that's, as my producer Tim just texted me then, 3 is the magic number, isn't it?
touche, absolutely, yeah.
You said your dad's passed away. What of your mum?
Mum's still with us. I didn't have a lot of contact with her for many years. We are back in touch as of last year, and we are slowly building some kind of relationship.
Go on, I'm gonna dig. You know I'm gonna have to dig on this one. Yeah, there's a little smile coming on your face
No,
there.
no, it's not. There is literally, I there was probably 20 something years where we had no contact. It was safer for me to shut her out than face the demons, I suppose, or the questions.
Which was more prominent, demons or questions?
Probably demons, because as a child, it's very easy to demonize people here, I don't know what the opposite is, heroize people. So it's black and white, good and evil,
Okay.
good dad, bad mum.
And that was your binary thoughts growing up as a
Yes,
teenager, etc.
yes. To block it all out, have no contact, then, you know, there is no chance for any uncomfortable conversation, because it's all about masking. It's all about, I suppose, protecting
Self-preservation.
absolutely self-preservation. Yes, because if somebody had that conversation with me, they would take me back to being a 6 or 7-year-old child. I weren't going back to those places. I was, you know, a spotty teenager.
Yeah, and that would mean going back to a vulnerable side
Yeah,
who hadn't aged up, who was trying
exactly.
to make sense of what the dislocation was going on, what had occurred, etc.
Yeah, very, very, very much. Now I understand more about the situation. You know, there's a real shame, you know, that I've lost decades of a relationship with, you know, quite a nice lady. But
Just on that point, it's interesting with maturity how we look through a lens of life experiences, and we see something rather different from when we were younger. And I'm wondering, those years, those decades when you weren't in touch, I'm assuming there was a lot of emotion there, a lot of negative emotion attributed towards your mum, and that was perhaps a barrier in
mm,
order.
yeah, absolutely. But I would shut it out. It was just, you know, the dark box that was never getting opened.
Hmm. I think my side then was
Mm,
again relatable,
yeah.
having experienced similar things. I know what you're saying there. I know where you're coming from there.
Like you said, it's self-preservation. You know, if you put that stuff away in that box and don't open that box, and you don't have to have those feelings. You don't have to have those conversations. You don't have to make yourself vulnerable, make yourself potentially get hurt. But I realize how unhealthy that is, to bury those dark emotions, because then it just, you know, it comes and bites you on the bum.
100%.
And it's only you recognize that in much later life, you know, you know, that's why so many men are, you know, there's alcohol or substance abuse, or, you know, domestic violence, or all kinds of things, because they haven't dealt with those demons.
And I suppose in some ways you're acting out, as it were, you're fighting 3 times a week was part and
Mm,
parcel of that. Knowing how to, crap, I'm not going to deal with this. Let me just put it on the shelf somewhere.
yeah,
Otherwise, it's just going to be a car crash for me, and I won't be able to stay focused on.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I would lose my place in the pecking order, or my semblance of stability. You know, that feeling, that um, constant level of anxiety that I
I'm,
was carrying. Yeah,
I'm smiling there. Brilliant anxiety.
yeah,
Because nobody appreciates the pressures, the constant pressures that you're under, trying to keep everything appear on the outside as sane and
yeah,
manageable. Whilst
yes,
internally we have this turmoil, how are we
absolutely,
presenting to the outside world?
yes. And it was weird because I think a few years ago, as one of the sort of outcomes of a particularly tough counselling session, I came out and, blimey, I vomited profusely, and then I sawed myself. And it's where the knot in my stomach had released,
Yes.
because I'd been carrying this almost black toxin
Yes.
in my tight knot in my stomach. And suddenly I was able to bring it out, and I purged.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to mention a book. The Body Keeps the Score.
Okay.
by Bessel van der Kolk.
Yeah.
And effectively, basically what it talks about is trauma. And
Mm.
I'm not using the word trauma lightly here, but because when we've experienced life impacting events, our body finds a way of retaining that until we purge it. And if we don't purge it, it will manifest itself in other behaviors. Yours was fighting.
Yeah.
And I know if I go into the city centre in Liverpool of a weekend and I see fights, I will be able to identify people who are trying to purge internally what they're doing. And they're doing that through alcohol, they're doing that through drugs, they're doing that through fighting because they haven't found a safe way to be able to purge what they've been retaining for so long.
Yeah.
So it's
Absolutely.
so it's interesting you use that word purge even. I do want to move on to Dad Soul soon, but
Yeah.
just on that point, that part of reaching out, recognizing that you needed to be vulnerable.
Mm.
When was that? When did you realize that, you know what? Dan can't do this by himself. I need some support.
When I had my son, because I saw this wonderful, lovely, beautiful, innocent child, and why the hell should he put up with all the baggage that I was carrying? I knew I had to get rid of the baggage. I knew I had to face the demons in order to be a decent parent to him. So I wouldn't have done it for myself, but I
Why
would do
not?
it. Well, I
Why
don't
not?
know, just because I didn't feel worthy enough. There never would have been the right time. I could have always have put it off, but because there was an innocent child here, um, and I wanted him to have a very different upbringing to the one I had, the only way to do that is to go and slay some demons.
Okay. Can I ask, drugs, alcohol, was that ever a pathway that you went down?
Yeah, both. So alcohol probably never ever sort of really heavily, but it went from social to social crutch very quickly.
What's a social crutch?
Well, the fact that you've got to have a few pints inside of you to be able to go and be that funny bloke in the pub.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I experimented with substances, as most kids do. It
Yeah.
was the rave era, but I never really got addicted. When it started to get an issue with things, I was able to get a grip of it and potentially stop.
What does getting a grip look like for you? Or
Oh no,
what?
just being able to stop, or maybe change, not go to those certain venues where I knew I'd go to certain or see those certain people because I knew there would be a pattern of behaviour. If I did that, saw that person, the evening would end up like that. So
Messy.
messy, yeah. And then I'd feel rubbish for 3 days and not want to go to work, and then potentially, get into trouble and stuff like that. So I quite quickly caught on to the idea of a chain reaction. So don't do that, it won't end up like that.
Absolutely. Can I ask, and I am going right back, but I'm also coming forward with the birth of your son.
Hmm.
The word love, and what did love mean to you? And did it change over time? Did it even rear its head until before your son was born or before you met your partner of your firstborn?
Mm, no. So not in childhood. I know my parents loved me, but it was never discussed.
How did you know that?
Well, I would assume that they're not horrible people, so you would hope, and that they cared in their own way. But no, we were never told that I love you, or there was not, physical affection. Because I'm very different with my son. I go almost the other way, where I constantly tell him I love him and give him a hug, and I have done continuously. I knew I would get my affection from making my dad laugh.
You found your space and role in the family.
Yeah. I could be a cheeky little blighter.
Yeah.
I could be funny. I could make him laugh, and then he would. There was warmth and love, but no, we never sort of sat down and we never said, we love each other or hugged each other, or just was never part of the thing. Just didn't do it. And actually, I don't know if it's a generational thing, because if I speak to quite a few of my mates, they probably had similar relationships with their dads as well, because their dads were essentially war babies,
Okay.
brought up in very different times. So, back then, men didn't change nappies, they didn't push prams in public, or obviously some did, but there was still very much the typical gender lines. So the man was there as the voice of authority, as opposed to being the caregiver.
Okay. But when your son arrived, that was a game changer.
Yeah. I just knew I had to be better.
Better is an interesting word to use.
No, because I didn't want him to go through what I went through. Yeah, I realised probably a lot of the stuff that I went through as a child was the baggage that my own parents were carrying from their childhood. There was a huge thought about generational trauma.
Yes.
Yeah. But I had it in my power to change the story and not have that happen again. It didn't. Me and his mum ended up, separating, and I co-parent now, but I do it in quite an effective way. So there are lots of lessons learned that have not been repeated.
Okay. Would you mind sharing with listeners some of those lessons, just one or two?
Lesson, I suppose, in co-parenting is never to speak negatively about your partner in front of the child. What you might think is what you might think. It's still their mother or father. And I've learnt, I suppose, to get rid of the ego. So it's not about me or how I feel in the situation. It's ultimately, what can we do that is best for the child?
Yeah.
And what we can do is be polite to each other, be respectful, work together. We had Christmas Day together with my ex and my new partner and my son. That was a new thing for us, but it only came where we were able to drop the ego and get rid of the hurt and the accusations. Because when a relationship breaks, it's painful. You want to sling rocks, but is slinging rocks going to change the situation? No, it's going to make somebody just feel shit.
Absolutely.
And if you get your power from making somebody feel shit, then you're not a very nice person. So yeah, what I've learned is that we can co-parent effectively when you get rid of the ego. And I learned that through other dads at Dad the Soul, who, when they were telling me they had similar setups, they were getting on very well with their exes and going on holidays. And I was like, how the hell do you manage that? This is some sort of weird hippie utopia. To the point we had one lad come along with his best mate, who is his wife's new partner, and they co-parent so effectively that have keys to each other's house, and the two blokes, go out for a pint together. And it's yeah, but mate, he's with your ex-missus. What? It's like, don't bother me. Is he great to her? Yes. Does he make her happy? Yes. Does he make my daughter happy? Yes. I really like that in a person. So he's gonna, I really like him. So by having, listened to those guys, thinking, I want a bit of that.
So talk to me then about Dad La Soul, established in when? 2016?
2016. So I was a dad and we'd moved to a new town. and I was commuting. So I had a nice fancy job at a corporate, lovely little house in suburbia, doing everything society told me.
Yes, society's got a lot to answer for. A
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
to.
yeah. But where I was commuting, I'd leave very early in the morning, be home late. If I was lucky, I'd see my son to put him to bed. But at that time, I'd probably still be on my mobile phone answering client emails because that was my job as a provider. Go out, work, bring money, keep roof overhead, man, go hunt, gather. And I don't know, I got fed up of the way I saw dads being presented in the media. Started a little blog about it because I saw lots of, even like things at NCT you would go to.
NCT?
National Childbirth Trust, the groups that you can go to, sort of prenatal groups, support groups, but they tend to be, how can you support your wife through breastfeeding? There was never anything there for, how are you going to feel about this? The emotional welfare of dad, or, you know what, you're going to sit through see the woman you love in pretty major surgery. You're going to say all these, but who cares? We're not going to bother because that's your role. So I started blogging. The blog took off, turned into a magazine. Had 18 different dads writing at one point. That turned into a PR agency because we had a load of brands that wanted to target dads, but they were doing it very appallingly with those stereotypical views of dads. We wear cords like Jeremy Clarkson and can't dance. Well, mate, that sounds nothing like anybody that I know. So, yeah, we did that. And then I started running afternoon raves for families because I got fed up of not having a social life. So I'd hire out venues, bring in some mates that were DJs, bring in some soft play and some equipment for the kids. And we created something called Tot Rockin' Beats. That flew. So we started doing summer festivals. But on a Saturday morning, I was still struggling. I'd take my son to the park and be on my own. I'd take him to soft play and be on his own. And if you're a mum, it's really easy for you to go down the park. Your kid starts playing with another kid. You strike up a conversation with the other mum, exchange numbers, and organise a play date. Society isn't quite there for me to walk up to somebody else's missus and say, look, can I have your digits? Because our kids are getting up. But we've still got a little way to go for that. Yeah. Or, going to mother and baby groups and being the only dad there. And I just couldn't understand why it was still like that. So I took the equipment that I had from the raves, convinced a mate of mine to give us his office one Saturday morning and did a play date. Just put a call out on social media. We had, I think, 14 dads and 20 odd kids turn up. Very liberal interpretation of health and safety back then, got to say. But what I noticed is none of the blokes were on their mobile phones. If you'd gone to normally to a kid's birthday party where you see parents get together, it'll be the mums taking over, the dads will sink back and just be on their phone or be having really socially awkward conversations about what car they drive or did you see the match? And it sort of struck me and goes, I'm onto something here. I don't know what it is, but I'm onto something. And it just sort of grew and grew and grew. So we're on event 400 and something now.
Wow.
We've had well over 11,000 people through the door. So we do three things. We do our play dates. So that's on Saturday morning. The dads and kids get together and we'll put on different themes. So we'll have Lego, crafting, soft play, but we'll do it in a really interesting environment. So rather than going to like a crappy church hall, we'll take over a museum or a tech innovation centre, and then we'll bring in different facilitators. So we'll bring in guys that will run a rap workshop or DJ workshop for the dads and the kids, or we'll do junk modelling. So the kids can let off some steam, the dads can make some friends, maybe learn a new skill. Then on a Thursday night, we do our meetups. So that's essentially a youth club for men. Because as you'll know, men don't seek help until point of crisis.
Absolutely.
Where we operate as a Trojan horse. Middle-aged men, come over here and talk about your feelings. You would go, no, Dan, that sounds like a terrible idea. I'm all right. Yeah, I say,
Absolutely.
come over here, have a beer, have a tea. We're going to watch a stand-up comedy. We've got the decks here. Do you want a DJ? Do you want to just come and hang out? Yeah. So that the blokes come together, hang out, and then the conversations start. So rather than sit around in a circle like traditional group therapy, it's really unique in its way that the guys just start opening up. So 1 minute you're talking why the Stone Roses is the best band ever, to, my partner's just left me. My wife's got stage 4 brain cancer. We did a session a couple of weeks ago where we had another lad from a charity called 1 in 6 come in, and that's for male survivors of sexual violence.
Yes.
And he started talking about his story to the group from a perspective, and then a couple of the other guys, started disclosing that they'd also been, they were survivors of childhood sexual violence. We've done stuff with drug and rehabilitation workshop, what men need to know about the menopause, what it's like to bring up a dual, mixed faith, mixed race relationships. And it's all the stuff that maybe we should talk about, but traditionally as men, we don't. So we're bringing guest speakers, spark those conversations. And it's just sort of grown and grown and grown. So I'm quite proud. We've got Dad Lasolis in New Zealand as part of the Maori community. We've got Dad Lasolis in the Czech Republic, Glasgow, Berlin, France. I'm living in a sleepy town in West Sussex that used to have it's about 15 miles away from Brighton. Brighton's our big, cool cousin. We are essentially God's waiting room.
Yeah.
But in this sleepy town in West Sussex, we have born a revolution to the point where we are now the leading organisation of its kind in the UK. We are probably, I would say, at least top 5 in the entire world. And I know this because I have organisations from other countries contacting me going, can we mirror your approach? Because from an output point of view, I've had very established universities, I won't name them, but they're doing work on the engaged fatherhood and stuff like that. Okay, so tell me, what are your outputs? And I said, if we're successful, we can get maybe 6, 8 men in a room. Okay, I'm getting hundreds every week. So whatever you're doing is out of date. Whatever I'm doing is working.
100%.
And it's working because it's coming from a grassroots perspective. It's made by dads for dads. So it's a lot more authentic.
Bottom-up approach.
Yeah, absolutely. We still got love for the streets,
Go on. Another cultural reference again.
Exactly.
Keep it going. Keep it going.
So that's why we work. This is where we have a proven global social impact. And it's still remarkable that I am the only full-time employee. We basically, for the last 7 years, have relied on the kindness of volunteers to do all of this, where there's huge organisations that are exceptionally well funded, shall we say.
Let's not go there. Let's not go
Yeah.
there. Let's not go there.
Yeah.
Come
They
on,
can't do what we do.
you know why they can't do?
Yeah.
Because you've got the mandates of the people. Okay? There's a massive difference there. But this would take us down another area that I don't want to.
So we'll get political, and it's not nice.
Yeah.
No, so that's where Dad Soul with them is. So we've got the events, then we've got a range of podcasts and radio shows and content and videos that we do, launching a range of merchandising. So the idea you'll be able to rock a Dad Soul sweatshirt, listen to our radio show, come to our events, hang out with your kids, or maybe you don't have your kids every week. You can still come to our events. We've got dads who have gone through miscarriage, guys that are struggling with IVF, guys that are grieving, because they've lost their kids, which is not, I would say interesting, but it's a challenging conversation. Are you still a dad?
Of course.
Yeah, I know, but society won't see that. So where's your role?
Well, it's interesting because just going back, and I'm just thinking about the PR, the press for dads in general.
Yeah.
And it feels like that lens, whilst you're smashing it down, it's taken ages for it to catch up. That dads want to be seen as more engaged,
Yeah.
more participative,
Yeah.
engaged emotionally.
Yeah.
That dads do have things to offer that sometimes mums can't offer. And it's not all about this toxic masculinity of you need to be hard, you need to be this, that, and the
Yeah.
other. It's okay to cry sometimes.
Yeah.
It's okay to be frustrated. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. But build that emotional resilience. I think there is, you know, you can see the impact on a child that doesn't have positive male role models. You know, that from an education, from a societal point of view. But there is I suppose, the question as us from a generational point of view. Maybe we didn't have those kind of role models of the men that we are expected to be, i.e., the ones that are okay to cry, the emotionally resilient ones. Maybe our role models weren't like that.
Okay,
You know,
but you noticed that there was a glitch in the system and you've done something about it. Okay?
yeah,
You've been
I'd
able
say,
to
yeah,
you've been able to change it,
yeah,
but you've been through your own struggles, your own demons, etc. I'm assuming.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, life hasn't been straightforward, but I do consider myself extremely lucky that I haven't fallen party to you know the ways that some of my mates had. I haven't been banged up. I haven't got addiction issues and stuff like that. I have been able to sit down and go to counselling and work through these demons and stuff like that and educate myself.
You have mentioned going to therapy,
Mm,
but that very first time when you realize, shit, I need to sort this out. I've got a problem. I need to sort it out, and I can't do it by myself.
mm,
How was that for you to say, help? Because that goes right against everything as men, for the most men,
yeah,
what we're taught. No, suck it up, deal with it yourself. Don't say anything to anybody, and
I
just
think it probably well over 10 years ago now. I was commuting, but also my dad was very ill at the time. He was almost on his last legs. So that was very, very stressful. And then having my son, I think I was just spinning too many plates and those plates were starting to drop. I did it because of my son, which I did, but it was because I was probably very close to breaking down. I couldn't keep all of these plates in the air. So the first couple of times, actually, I'd attempted it previously and gone to one or two sessions and then just written it off as, therapy's a load of gobbledygook and nonsense. But then I was very fortunate to meet a woman called Sam that I saw, say, for basically about 6 years, that would not take any shit from me.
I like
Absolutely.
I like Sam
Yeah,
straight away.
yeah,
I like Sam.
yeah. I was very easy to talk my way out of situation.
I know. I
No,
can
not having it. Not
imagine.
having it. Yeah, not having it. You're doing this. And I built up trust, and I think that is the key thing there. So if the guys are listening, going, yeah, I don't know. If you find somebody that I would say you vibe with, but that's lessening it. But it's that relationship between you and that therapist is sacrosanct. If you can
Absolutely.
find that space where it was four walls, it was an hour a week for me just to get whatever was in my head out there and then slowly start digging away at maybe, do you realize this thing keeps happening because of this thing 40 years ago? We've got to unpick that. We've got to face that, but we'll face that together in this safe space. So I am a huge, huge advocate for it. I wish I'd done it years ago. You have to be it's like any kind of therapy, or you know, I've got mates that are in recovery. You know, you can't force somebody there.
No.
They've got to. I think if you're listening, you go, do it for yourself, but do it for those around you, because you will end up a better human being. So you deserve it, but also your wife, your partner, your kids, you know, your mates deserve a better version of you, and that will come if you are able to maybe just unpick some of those knotty issues.
Who's the most important person in your life?
Probably my child.
Pardon.
Probably my child, my son.
Okay, wrong. It's you.
Yeah, that's the adage of the ask, isn't it? Yeah. I've got to
It's
look after
you.
myself so I can be. I get that.
100%. 100%.
I do. I understand more of that, but there is, you know, that's a. I wish you were in. Come to some of our events, because this is a regularly occurring topic of conversation. Get rid of that guilt and shame
Yes.
to be able to put yourself forward.
Yes.
Come to a group, have an hour out your week, mate, and just come and de-stress or vent. No, I can't do that because the kids are me. Can't do that because the missus there. Can't do that because I've got this. No. Give me an hour. Give me a couple of hours once a month. It's all I need you for. But yes, that is, say, regularly a topic of conversation with the fellas.
It's good. You know what? That 1 hour is an hour for your future self and your future relationships.
Yeah.
I say to people, how do you eat an elephant? A little bit at a time. You know, too often we look at the bigger picture and it's overwhelming. But as you say, if we just chip away for that 1 hour, you're going to create something that's worthwhile.
They'll come along, have a different conversation, and maybe it sounds, glib, but they'll make a friend. Right? Then they'll join the five-a-side team, or we're on the south coast here, so quite a lot of the boys are into sea swimming.
Yeah.
Cold water therapy. They go, oh, I ain't going to try that. Yes, you are. Come with the lads.
You are, of course.
Yeah. We'll go and do that, at 5:30 in the morning. Or the guys that are into music will go to gigs and get their release that way by jumping up and down in the mosh pit for a couple of hours and having that release, that stress relief, that tension. But out of that, so that community comes the ability to also at any time put your hand up and go, things are getting on top of me.
Absolutely.
Peer-led support, peer-led pathways. They go, me too, mate. Absolutely, I get it. Though. As I mentioned earlier, there was that male survivors of sexual violence, and let's not cut. That's a heavy subject.
Yes.
Right. And I couldn't say, right, come along, guys, because this is what we're going to be talking about, rape. So nobody's going to turn up. But if we plant that subjectively within the conversation in the evening, then the guys were confident enough or comfortable enough to have those very open conversations respectfully. I sat with this group of essentially, quite a lot of them were strangers, and saw them opening up. And it was absolutely remarkable. I felt so absolutely honoured that these guys have been carrying this stuff for donkey's years, but suddenly they were okay to just chat about it. Again, it's not being glib. It was me too. It was me too. Yeah, but mate, you're that fella. I know you in that role. How that's not compute.
But you know what? I just call that magical, because what you've done, what you've been part of, what you've bore witness to is magic occurring and making people realize, regardless of their gender, regardless of their sexuality, that they are not alone. Because it's that fear of thinking it's only me that stops people from coming forward.
You don't want to be the odd one out. Well, I've got 500 friends. Yes, mate, but they're on Facebook. Can you have an honest conversation with any of them? No, you bloody can't. Come over here.
100%. Where do you see Dad La Soul being, say, in 5 years' time? Where do you want to go? What's next for you? What would you like?
Okay, in the next 1 to 3 years, it'll be established across the UK. So we want physical chapters in towns and cities across the UK at a bare minimum.
Okay, can I ask why the word chapters?
Because give me a better name, then I would use it. The chapter is because, Hell's Angel. And it's a joke there. But Hell's Angel / the Masons / something else, we're looking at potential social franchising model. But
Okay.
I want a physical presence in towns and cities across the UK. So, God forbid your relationship breaks down and your kids go and live in another town, right? You can go there, pick your kids up, and know on a Saturday morning.
Absolutely. I can already read your mind and what you're saying there.
But we've got guys that are now, there's one lad that travels down from Ipswich. Then we had one guy who lived in mid Wales. He came down once a fortnight because his daughter lived in Bognor, which is about an hour away, picked her up, then came to our activities because he was staying in an Airbnb. He had because he was so far away, he had no access. He didn't have access to the school gate relationships or whatever.
Yes.
But he had a band of brothers as soon as he stepped through the door. So if we can put this in towns and cities across there at a bare minimum, that happens. But then because of the different conversations I'm having, there is a need for this in cities across the world. So I would love, a Berlin chapter, a France chapter, we're talking to an organization in New York again about how we model our approach. So 5 years' time, I want a network of space. There are other organizations that are starting to spring up to do, similar bits of work, and it's
you are doing this. That's all that matters.
Exactly. And we're so far ahead of the thinking and the outputs. Mate, I'm after a global revolution. I'm 50 this year. By the age of when I retire, I want to be able to travel to different countries and see that name there and know that there is not a 6-year-old Dan like me struggling because his dad is able to get support.
Have De La Soul been in touch with you?
No.
Yes.
But
yes.
Yet the guy that does our design work, give him a mad shout out. He's called Mark Medina.
Mark Medina.
He's in Chuck D's design agency, right? So he works with Chuck D has a design agency. So he's worked with Run DMC, any number of established hip hop artists. So we say there is a big level of credibility there. I did try and reach out to De La Soul when they came locally, but I couldn't get backstage to them. But legally, I own the trademark, But the reference point is, De La Soul means from the soul. So in COD translation, Dad La Soul is from the dad. You know very well that they were part of native tongues. So they sampled and brought together a huge range of other alternative influences to create something positive. That's what we're doing, right? And also, Dad La Soul is a really good pun. And who doesn't like a dad pun?
You know that. Everybody, you've been listening to Dan Flanagan of Dad La Soul. Dan, thank you for attending and participating and talking in this, The Hurt Locker.
Wow, no, that is the places that we went to. I was not expecting that. And I'm really intrigued. If this is the sort of question you asked, this is going to be a hell of a series.
You know what? Props to you. Thank you. Tim and I just share this. We just want to be as authentic as possible. Ask those questions that perhaps we only think about. But we're too afraid to ask. You know what? I feel I know, not that I've worked hard. It's been a fucking pleasure.
Thank you.
It's
Absolutely.
been
In the
a
words of
pleasure.
that man, it's been emotional. Yeah.
That's the one.
I have gone to places that I am not normally taken to. So I'm really inspired by the way you've done this. Right?
Thank you.
I've done a lot of podcasts and we produce a lot of podcasts. Do we ever go to the depths that you did? No, we don't. Should we? Yes, we bloody well should. So it's been a school day as well. So thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Hurt Locker. Please give us a rating or share with another listener. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Hurt Locker Pod.